Good evening, ma'am, and it's a pleasure having you here. And we all know the work done by SBI as the largest and the most important bank in India in driving technology, driving adoption. But how do you look at this schema where banks are now taking in a lot of technology? How easy or how difficult is it, especially for a very large bank like you?
Well, it's not easy. Let me be very clear about it. It's not easy. Whether it is difficult or not doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, what needs to be done has to be done. And I think today the banks don't have a choice. There is no option. Today's youth, for instance, they are going to be technology driven. Many youngsters, you'll find they're more comfortable talking to a screen rather than to a person. So if you're not there on that screen, then they're not going to talk to you. So you have to be there. The second thing is, now more and more people are comfortable doing things on their own. So, if it's a self-service mode, again, technology is very important. Plus, people are impatient. So if they wake up in the middle of the night and they want to get something, they want it. And they have to have it. Okay. So with today's youth, this is something that is a must. It has to happen. So no matter how difficult, we have to take it on. But let me tell you, it is difficult. When we started on our digital journey, I think initially even the vendors thought that we were talking about a skin change. It is only later on, as we went deeper into the whole thing, they realized even the innards are changing. And that's not easy, especially not easy when it's like a car that's running and you are fixing it as it runs. It's a real-time operation. You can't even drop the ball for a minute. And in fact, there are countries where if in the whole year you have had outages of more than 4 hours, there are severe penalties. Mm-hmm. So you can't have outages, you can't drop the ball, and yet you've got to change it as you work. So it's a very difficult situation. It's not easy.
So ma'am, in such a construct, what do you see are the major risks, of technology adoption, or what? And how do you look at them? Do you look at them as a driver? Do you look at them as something that needs to be managed as you go along? Or do you look at them as something that has to be done and will be done in due course of time?
See, I will outline 3 risks, okay? One, of course, is the operational risk. That is, when you are putting in something new, you are not really taking into account all the areas where risks could be posed, okay? And you have seen one of the largest bank frauds. Yeah. It was basically because there was no handover between one system and the next. That handover was manual, but that manual handover was never audited, okay? So these are the sort of things that might happen when you put in new technology. You may not understand where the risk resides and you may not adequately address it. So the operational risk is very high and you need to understand all of that before you really, accept something. The second risk is, of vendors telling you that you need a lot of stuff, which ultimately you may not really need. So what is the ROI? What's the return on investment? Are you spending too much and not getting enough back? Do you realize how much you will get back? If you don't realize it, do you at least have some kind of an estimation? And for that matter, if the estimation is not coming correct, then where do you cut it off? And actually speaking, you'll have to have the courage to say that I made a mistake. And many a times in many organizations, that space of saying I made a mistake is not there. Okay, so that's again another second risk that I would say is there. And it's a very big risk, especially for the people who have taken the decisions. It is a very big risk. And the last thing that I often find, at least in the Indian context, I found it, that when we try and put in place something, I have not yet found a single implementation where the kind of hardware we needed is not 3x what has been initially thought of.
The creep
in costs just goes on and on and on. You also have to have this, you also have to have that, means how do you get your arms around all of that? So this is again something that we must try and protect against by getting as much of expertise as possible to look at any project that we are doing, by ensuring that there is a proper translation of what you want into the language of the technologists. So, the people who are asking for it are business people, and the people who are going to deliver are tech people. So, this bridge between the two has to be really, really understood. Because I might be an expert in banking, the guy who's going to deliver the software isn't. Okay, so I know the risks, but do I really put out all of the risks, all of the scenarios, everything that might matter at the very first instance? Or do I sort of keep on adding, this is also there, that is also there, and thereby that guy also, is at sea? So I think that is the third biggest thing. But all of these are very real risks. And these all need to be properly looked at when you are going, all in for IT.
Ma'am, I think that also calls out for a culture of innovation that you drive really from the top, because everything you mentioned is, whether it be from an operational standpoint or the attitude to try something new and have the courage to say, it may not work out the way we expect it to. Fail, fast forward. You try something, fail, but cut your losses quickly and move forward. So that is actually a cultural change that needs to be driven. And if you want to really have an innovative approach, and I think you're right, technology or innovation is no longer a choice that we make. So we want to stay relevant in the business. I guess that's where we are headed anyway.
So I think you're absolutely correct. The culture of innovation has to be very deeply ingrained in an organization. Luckily, one good thing is that we are getting a lot of youngsters into our organizations. One good thing about the PSBs is that the attrition rate, that is the retirement rate, is pretty high because our workforce is pretty old. And that actually enables us to get a lot of new blood. And the youngsters are all for it. These sort of things then give you a lot of hope that the people that you have, they are really, they really want to do new things. They are interested in doing new things. They are not dyed in the wool kind of people or stick in the mud kind of people. And that, I think, is something, again, means probably, I don't know whether it is true of all countries, but it's one of the strengths of India, I think. That, you have this propensity to be IT savvy.
Adoption rates to be
Correct. Thank you for taking time out speaking to us. I think some of the things you brought up are actual real issues, and hopefully, as a ecosystem, as a community, we'll be able to manage the risk better.
Sure.
Congratulations on running one of India's premier banks, and thank you for taking time out today.